Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Option Menu Crew podcast. This is episode 30. Your crew today is myself, Ryan, and then we also have crew member Ed. How you doing, Ed?
I'm Ed, and I'm always happy to be here. I think that's what I say every time, but it's true every time I say it.
And also, crew member returning today for this conversation is Mark. How you doing, Mark?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me back.
And so, just a little behind the scenes, we were trying to be more clever, but it didn't quite work out. Mark and I are actually hanging out and recording together, but we have to share a mic because we couldn't figure out how to set up the two mics. Growing pains of a podcast. But super happy to be vaccinated and be able to hang out and do recordings like this together. So we'll have that sorted out if we ever choose to do that later. And this episode is continuing the series of platform-specific discussions. So, as the previous two episodes were, we did Nintendo and PlayStation. So today we're talking about Xbox, which is the main reason we wanted to have Mark on. So, just like the previous episodes, we're going to talk about at the top a little bit about our personal histories with the platform, and then go into our thoughts about where it's been, what we think about where it's been, where it is, and where we'd like to see it go in the future. So super excited to continue this conversation. And since Mark is on first, Mark, would you be cool with going first and setting it as our resident Microsoft and Xbox fanboy?
Sure, I can do that for you. So, where do we begin? 2001, I believe, is when we all started. Long story short, it was me, my two brothers, as it usually is. Xbox OG, the big brick. First game that I absolutely definitely bought was not actually Halo 1. It was Brute Force, which I think came out before Halo 1. But that was sort of where we all started. On that OG console, we eventually got to Halo 1, and the series took off, had a ton there. I think really where it all shifted and things really got much better was once we started having Xbox Gold, Xbox Live service, being able to play with friends beyond just whoever is. So, to set the stage, I think that's kind of where it all began. Brute Force, an IP that's no fortunately around, but had many big Duke controllers. What?
You got to speak loud.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right. But yeah, so that's essentially where the OG Xbox kicked it off for myself.
Okay. Thanks for that, Mark. And then for myself, so with the systems, oh, Mark, did you mention whether or not you have a series?
I did not, and I do not at the moment, but I think we're going to get to that later.
Okay. So yeah, for myself, I got a little bit of a storied history with Xbox, and I started off as being an Xbox hater, 110% about that. So when the original Xbox came out, I was like a normal grade school kid, middle school or high school, I think it was. So I didn't really have the money to do it myself, and I got a little bit of an allowance, but I got Nintendo, I had PlayStation, and I really didn't. And I had a Sega Dreamcast as well. So yes, I was lucky enough, but I was nearing that point where I knew I'd asked for too much already before, so I wasn't going to try and force my parents. And wasn't the original Xbox like $400? Wasn't it $399 when it came out? Not $299? Thought it was more expensive. But either way, I still knew it was like getting to the point where I was asking for a lot, and I was trying to buy stuff for myself instead of asking my parents all the time. Like they could buy me games or accessories. I thought that was reasonable, but asking for a full blown console, that was getting a little bit up there. So, I was mad for a very petty reason, which was I was a big fan of the Dead or Alive video game series. I like the fighting game mechanics. I don't care what any of you guys think. I'm not a perv, but I really like the fighting game mechanics of it. And when I found out that I played a bunch of Dead or Alive 2 on PlayStation 2, and then when I found out Dead or Alive 3 was going to be exclusive to Xbox Original, I was super mad because it was almost a launch game, and I wanted to play it on my PlayStation or Dreamcast or something like that, and I knew I wasn't going to get it since they said it was an exclusive. I don't think. No, yeah, we were a little far away. GameCube and all that stuff was out. It wasn't coming to anything I was going to own, so that just made me upset. And as we all infamously know, Xbox OG almost failed, but Halo's popularity pretty much saved it, gave it legs, and then they got a couple other cult classics out there. Like they kicked off Fable. Did Forza debut on Xbox original? Yeah. What do you want to say, Mark?
Yeah, that's Forza. Forza kicked it off there. Great series still to this day. So glad that it still lives on.
Yeah, so then I got really upset at Halo because it saved Xbox. So I hated Halo and I hated Xbox. And that was me being super salty. And I realized how petty that was back then, but I was a dumb kid. So we all grow. It was in the 360 generation that I finally began to warm up to Xbox because it clearly wasn't going away. They had this new console coming out, and the launch lineup was super weak to me. I didn't really care. But eventually, down the line, they came out with it was Mass Effect 1 and BioShock 1 that convinced me, all right, I need to get an Xbox 360. And about the time that those games started coming out was when the first edition of the Xbox Elites, the Xbox 360 Elite versions, which were the black consoles with, were those the first ones with built-in Wi-Fi or just the bigger hard drive? I know the bigger hard drive was definitely it. Yeah, no built-in Wi-Fi yet. That's right. The original 360s had Ethernets, but they didn't have Wi-Fi yet. And I think PlayStation 3 was PlayStation 3 was debuting with Ethernet and Wi-Fi. The Switch had not the Switch. The Nintendo Wii had the Wi-Fi. I didn't buy a PlayStation 3 right away, as I mentioned on the previous podcast, but I did get a Wii right away. So, I got the 360 Elite model with the 60 gigabyte hard drive, I believe it was. It was the bigger one. And then I bought those games. I bought all my third-party games. I pretty much became a 360 fan and played just about everything on there. Eventually got a PS3, but that was super late compared to that. I mainly gamed, got Xbox Live Gold, and it was great. I was sucked in. Everyone that loved online, all my friends, we were 360 people. Still not that big a fan of Halo, but I have played more because my friends are super into it, and I played the multiplayer modes a bunch. I've co-oped a little bit in some of the campaigns. I played through Halo 4's campaign completely myself, and I really liked that campaign. Even though I hadn't experienced all the Halo stories directly, I knew enough about that when I experienced the Halo 4 story, I was actually pretty moved by the ending there. I was forced to play through Halo 5's multiplayer on Legendary, and that's the part I was forced. Like, I volunteered to play the campaign, but my friends and Mark was not part of that group of friends, so I'm not calling him out, just so our audience knows. But it was the my other set of friends. They're super big FPS people. They're way better at it, and they're just like, oh, it's not challenging unless we play on Legendary, and then we play through it and beat it. And Halo 5's campaign is trash, absolute garbage. And I don't even care about spoil. It's not even that big a spoiler, but you fight the same boss like 4 times in that campaign, and its final encounter is just 4 of it. And on Legendary, it's just super busted. We did beat the campaign, but it was not fun. It was a slog. I kept saying, guys, we all hate this. Why are we just bumping it down? And they just, like, pride-wise, like, no, we're just going to overcome it. I'm like, okay. So I tried to quit in the middle. They wouldn't let me. Anyways. But yeah, and then I enjoyed 360. I was looking forward to getting an Xbox One, but there wasn't a lot of exclusives, so I held off for a long time. Then Killer Instinct came out, so I got it for Killer Instinct. Then I was looking forward to Scalebound, which was going to be published by Microsoft, developed by Platinum Games. I was super excited for that. And then it also famously got canceled. # never forget Scalebound. So I did have an Xbox One, and then as soon as Killer Instinct came to PC, I dumped it through the not Games with Gold, but it had cross-buy. So once they started honoring Xbox games on the Xbox app on PC, I claimed it there. All my stuff came over. I had my live subscription still, so I was able to do there. And then I actually, I don't remember if I rebought the game with Steam. I've had a pretty good experience with the Xbox app so far. And I considered getting an Xbox Series. At this point, I'm able to afford the consoles on my own, and I figured I would get one at some point. But then Game Pass. Game Pass has just been the most awesome value. You're gonna hear us sound off a lot about it. And the value for that is great with my gaming PC, and I've been investing in that. I'm able to play all my Xbox first party games there. I can play a bunch of third party games there. I have a PlayStation 5 for those exclusives, and any of testing third party games that may not come to Steam or to Game Pass right away. And that pretty much covers it. And of course, Nintendo Switch to cover that gamut. So I currently don't own an Xbox Series, either an S or an X. I don't plan on it as long as Game Pass and Microsoft continue to bring their games to PC Game Pass and to Steam. So yeah, that's pretty much with where my history lies. Ed, what is your experience with the Xbox platform?
Well, the first and only Xbox I owned was the original Xbox One, that giant, like, man, it was like a cable box of a console, but the one with the Connect too. So I used the voice commands. I tried to embrace it. And I bought the Xbox One that gen because Sunset Overdrive, I think it was a launch game. I think I mentioned that in the Sony episode that I was, I like Insomniac. I like what they do. I liked Sunset Overdrive. So, when the two consoles came out, that's the direction I went. I
Hmm.
don't own the Xbox One anymore. I ended up getting on the PS4 train a little later, and I think in retrospect, I probably would have been happier with just the PS4. But you go, like you said, you dumped your Xbox once you found out you could just do it, not use your PC. And um other than that, like, I was PS2, PS3, so I don't have that much experience with Xbox. I like some of the things that they're doing, and we'll talk about that more later. And I could see myself going back, whether that's through their PC app or just through getting a series console. But for me, it all comes down to what games are available, and whether or not I want to play them.
Okay, great. Thanks. Oh, so having this conversation also just reminded me that I think let's take a minute to just try and get on the same page and how we're going to shorthand refer to the 4 generations and consoles that Xbox has gone through. And I think that's a pain point that really Microsoft and I don't know if we want to separate them in some way from the decision making, but Xbox's branding is very confusing overall. So I think we're all pretty good with calling the 360 the 360, which is the 2nd generation of Xbox. It really starts getting weird with the 3rd generation, which is the Xbox One platform. So do we want to go with like Xbone? Do we want to go with Zone? And then there's also the Xbox. There's Xbox One, then the Xbox One X, then the Xbox One XXXS series. I don't know. So yeah, and then there's the Series S and the Series X, which I think is pretty easy. We can just call that the series, and that's the 4th generation. So, Mark, as a resident there, do you just want to go OG, 360, Bone, or whatever? What's your take?
Don't forget the Xbox One Deluxe Platinum Premium 500 terabyte hard drive version. That's the really important one. Everyone owes that one. No. Yeah, OG 360 one, and then I would say series is kind of the current, and then it's like, do you have the X or S, which is absolutely all over the place, but is what it is.
Okay, so if I heard you
Yeah,
right,
I can agree with that.
oh,
OG 360 one in the series console.
okay, cool. Yeah, I'm down with that. We also can't forget the very special edition that they partner with Sega with, which was the Xbox One X and Knuckles. So yeah,
You.
yeah, you plus advance. Now featuring Dante
Man,
from the Devil May Cry series and Funky Mode.
that that is a really tired joke, but it doesn't get old now, does it?
Not for us super
It's
nerds. No. So I definitely want Mark to kind of lead the conversation here. I've definitely got a bunch of praise to heap on it. Ed is kind of our outsider opinion, so you know we really want to see what it's going to take for Ed to um, where Ed's thoughts are developing and what's going to get him in here. But you know, Mark, go ahead and kick it off and tell us like where your feelings are on Xbox right now.
Yeah, so right now, current console, I like I said at the top of the hour, don't own a series console. Whether it's something I buy in 2021 is still to be determined. I have literally practically no reason to get one. I also have a PC, so there is that, but there just hasn't been a need or a want necessarily on my end. I know that there was an early issue with quick resume. I don't know how well that's been patched. I am really excited to try out the new controllers. Those do look pretty sharp. Actually, I know Ryan, you've actually let me mess around with one of them before, so those are fun. And I know it's something that is compatible on the current one that I own, but you know, why drop another $60 on something that I may not use in another couple of years? So I think to kind of like jump ahead a little bit, the one thing that I definitely want from, well, I think we'll get to some of what I was about to tee up, but yeah, just the current system, it's just not hitting all the boxes for me necessarily. Um, I don't know if that's something that you would agree with, Ed, or if you to propose a question. Are you have a PS5, right?
No, I have a PlayStation 4.
Okay.
I haven't been able to get a PS5 yet, and I'm not interested in playing the game of
Okay.
fighting with the retail sites. Just I'll wait until I can get one easily.
Yeah, and that's exactly kind of how I've been, but more so on the GPU front within PCs. It'll happen when it happens. It's no rush as of right now. As for, Ryan, like have you seen a single thing on the Xbox Series consoles that have actually, jumped out? Whether it be just simply quick resume, but is there any one particular feature that you've seen that you really feel desperate, like, oh, I feel like I'm missing out on that. I want that.
Not really. There's nothing really built into the system or the OS that I feel I'm really missing. I love the Series X design over the PlayStation 5s, both digital and disc version. I am very fascinated by the fact that the Series S model is so much smaller and discless. I just saw that there's some companies putting out a third-party screen that really nicely attaches to the S and kind of makes it semi-portable, which goes back to like the late PlayStation 1 phase, the mid generation of both GameCube and PS2, where especially after the PS2 Slim came out, where there was all these little monitors here, and you started seeing some suitcase monitors for even the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. But I have my PC. I'm comfortable enough to LAN. I've got a bag for my PC, and I've gone with a smaller form factor desktop in order to accommodate LAN parties. The Steam Deck's coming out, and there's also more options growing in that space where if I need a more LAN friendly PC setup, I can really do that. And that's kind of where I wanted to go with the conversation is one of the things is we're all aware of the Steam Deck. And while it's still months off from us getting it, it poses a really interesting question for Microsoft, considering that they are now transitioning really hard into more of a service thing. They have their Xbox hardware, of course, with the Series platforms, but with that Series branding lends itself to the idea that there may be more models of Xbox out there. Also, Xbox has had not Xbox, Microsoft, who owns Xbox, has their Surface brand for the, I don't know, Mark, would you call them like supercharged tablets as he is listening in on Discord to get all the audio from his Surface tablet? Like, what would you categorize the Surface as?
I would probably classify it as a premium two-in-one laptop tablet combo. It's not something that I own one. I've never actually tried installing Steam or playing any games. I don't think I think it's got an integrated GPU within the Intel chip, nothing fancy. Um, I mean, to be honest, when it comes to Photoshop editing and whatnot, that's where it begins to bottleneck. Um, I would love it if it supported gaming, but not right now.
Okay. Now, thinking like Microsoft business strategy and where you'd like to see it, would there be what's your take on from what you know of the Steam Deck right now? And the question I'll pose to you first, and then we can go around and answer that. Because Ed, I'm also curious if it would even fit your demographic for the kind of gamer you are. Is do you think it would be better for Microsoft to try and create their own semi-portable Xbox branded to create gaming? Do you think they should utilize the Surface branding and make like an Xbox Surface that's more of a gaming level of that two-in-one? It kind of like Apple's got iPad Pro, but go with like a much more souped up one. Maybe it's a bit thicker, almost like to the size of like thinking like Mac, because they've got their Macs that are like the all-in-one monitor thing. So if you go a little bit thicker, it's heavy, but it could still be extremely portable because it's just a screen with a bunch of ports on it. Or do you think Microsoft?
Do you mean the iMac? Is that you mean the iMac?
Oh, iMac. Pardon me. Yes, the iMacs.
Okay. Those are not very portable. I wouldn't consider an iMac something that you're going to pick up and take with you.
But don't they have the? Isn't there the newer ones that are all in one? That they're still all in
They're all
ones,
in
but
one. They're all in one,
smaller.
I'd say they're a stationary machine.
They're
But
pretty.
That's beside the point. I'm sorry.
Oh well, just to clarify, because I know there's a couple things, and I might have to Google it. Is the I'm not talking about like the little desktop machines. What are those called? The ones that are actually like the little towers.
Those are the Mac Mini, and they're like, the
All right.
size of a little. They're small.
And then the iMac is the ones that are like just a kind of a super thick monitor.
Well, the new ones are really thin because they're using the same chipset as their new laptops, the
Right.
ARM chips. So the new ones are really thin.
They
But
don't and they don't need to have the internal power brick or battery because they're a monitor, so you're plugged in. And also with the screen size being what do you know what the screen size is offhand?
27 inches, I think.
Okay. But with all that extra surface area you can work with, they can spread out the components to maintain a flatter profile or slimmer profile, excuse me. So there's like that's an engineering solution in one direction. So that's more what I was talking about, but instead of 27, I'm thinking like 13-inch, and also instead of it being as thin as an iPad, it would be more like half an inch to an inch thick. An inch might be a little too much, but around that half an inch mark. So yeah, Mark, what are your thoughts in regards to that? Or should Microsoft, where using like the console and the PC space, is that like what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely something that could be, being worked on as we speak. I obviously have no insight. I have no idea. Uh, I think the Surface brand has a relatively good reputation. Xbox, I think, has had an amazing reputation and just brand recognition in the past so many years. So I like the idea of some kind of offshoot, Xbox gaming, Xbox portable, something to that extent. Just in case things don't turn out as that happens every now and then with Microsoft, Google, Apple, any of them. But yeah, I would be interested. I want to see how almost like the second generation of the Steam Deck goes. The first one hasn't even launched yet, so it's tough to say exactly how that's all going to net out. But I still think that they could be bigger and better. Once we start getting third-party support, different peripherals that you can attach to the Steam Deck or just integrate it, whether it be from an OS level or accessories. I'm very, very intrigued. It's fascinating to see what Valve is doing with that. But I think we're years away from it really being the cream of the crop. I think Xbox has a great handle on cloud gaming. I think that kind of puts them in a little bit of a better direction when it comes to portability, such as the Steam Deck, but time will tell.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on the idea of waiting and seeing until the next generation of the Steam Deck, or even what competitors come out that may be better or different. Of course, I put my $5 down. I got my the top level of the Steam Deck reserved, but I don't know if I'm going to give them the other 600 or so dollars. So It's an exciting idea, and Xbox, yeah, they might want to keep people in their ecosystem. Maybe they don't want to piggyback on Steam's device. So
Well,
it's wild.
yeah. Yeah, and it's also a bit like the one thing that I've kind of been holding on to. I think the one thing that Xbox really needs is a lot more sort of PC support. They obviously have they've had their own gaming or storefront for years and years. Obviously, it's Apple. It's David versus Goliath when it comes to Steam specifically. Definitely uh, the big player here. But how does that all come together in the future? How do we get more people to be on board with Windows or the Microsoft Xbox storefront?
And you kind of have the issue that, like, you might say that Microsoft, the Xbox store might be front and center. It comes with your Windows PC, but the kind of people who are going to be buying a PC for gaming are going to go to Steam. Like, it's not like you're going to buy your PC just for your office and notice the Xbox app and say, "Hey, I should game on this PC." 'Cause there's a lot of prerequisites to being able to just game on a PC. You need the hardware for it to be a good experience. It's not an accident that you get a gaming PC.
No, it's not. However, we're slowly bridging the gap, and maybe this is what Microsoft has to offer with the Xbox platform, because right now they have Game Pass, so they're giving a great deal to people when it comes to games. Now, I guess you could say that the Xbox platform already does this, which is they offer the console. So the only thing that the Xbox really doesn't do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, on this, is the Series can't be a Windows machine. The OS is a modified version of the of Windows, but it's still very much. I don't think you can put it into a Windows mode and make the Xbox just a PC and like change the OS over and allow it to boot Steam, and it's just like a mini computer, right? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, you are correct. Technically, according to Microsoft, Xbox is running Windows, hence their 1 billion goal of 1 million versions of Windows running out there. But I know what you're getting at. You can install Linux, you can install Windows on Steam Deck, which still, how is that all going to play out? Um, yeah, you can't really mod the Xbox, or you can, but of course you're going to potentially brick it, and other issues may happen.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, actually, I guess that would be the thing is one of the logical directions that Xbox could also go is that they could kind of go pull an Apple with the Xbox brand, which they kind of already are, but they're approaching from the gaming side. And if they eventually just put it into the system that it's also got PC functionality, and they're like, look, the Xbox is now also a PC. You buy it, it's spec'd for games, games are spec'd for it, and we've got like Xbox mode. And if you really want to be like a heart, or you want to bridge that gap and become a PC gamer, then you can turn on PC mode, and then it unlocks all of the like graphic settings and things like that, and you can tweak it. Of course, the system itself is still at a spec. It's just like how with Apple, like every generation of their Macs is a locked in set, minus like, I mean, how much, Ed, you can speak this. How much does it differ? Is it really just hard drive, RAM, like those easily to reconfigure spaces? Is there CPU and GPU or processor differences to loop them? Because I think they integrate it now, right? Um, is there any, like in the same year, let's say the 2021 models of Macs, is there really any differences in the processors, or did they lock it in at a generation each year?
Um, well, that's a hard question because things are changing pretty quickly in the Mac world. Their lowest end Macs, the lowest end MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro and the Mac Mini, and now the iMac, they're all using the same processor. They're all using this M1 processor, and the only difference is the level of cooling. I have the Air; it doesn't have a fan; it's all passively cooled. So you do something like video encoding, it's going to get throttled just because of thermal limitations. Um, but they're going to have more levels of chips later. But but before they went ARM with their own Apple Silicon, yes, you could buy different levels of processors. You could configure the RAM, you could configure storage, you could select integrated graphics or discrete graphics on higher end Macs. So you had a lot of options. They weren't cheap options, but yeah, they were options. But I think going forward, it's going to be a little more streamlined in what they're going to offer. But I don't know. I tend to follow some of the Mac news, and it's just constant ridiculous rumors of Apple's going to do this year. We're going to see this. It's I guess that's the case with all tech news, but nobody has any idea at this point. It's uncharted territory, but you used to have a lot of options. I don't know if you'll have that many going forward,
Yeah,
other than memory.
and I get it that right now Windows is the more open of the platforms, not as completely open as Linux, but between the three, it's like you've got completely open at the Linux side. You've got that like middle ground with Windows, and then you've got that much more gated community console-like experience with Apple on PC. So that Microsoft could continue to offer both, normal Windows, but then also devices that are meant to have some sort of lock-in spec, which just goes along with adding more choice in order to bridge that gap between being a PC and a console for the gaming space, and maybe convert some people one way or another, depending. But their service is going to work regardless, and they already make a bunch of the hardware, so it'd be really fascinating. And we kind of jumped right into where we want to see Microsoft go, but I think it's time to start shouting out some of the positives. So, Mark, what are some of the things that you have been super happy about with Xbox? What's kept you a fan over the years?
Well, you've already said it at least 3 times that I've been keeping a little tally on the side, but Game Pass, Game Pass, Game Pass, and now we're up to 6. That's definitely been the bread and butter for the last 2 years now, maybe a little bit longer, but for at least me. Uh, Xbox Live, Xbox Gold, whatever the hell they've renamed that to. I know it's completely changed their branding as of lately, but that's been the big thing. I know years ago, PlayStation users couldn't be in a party chat unless they were in the same game, right, Ed?
I've never been a big online
No.
player, so I could not tell you how it works on
Okay.
Sony.
But since the dawn of time, at least on the 360, I've always just remembered, hopping online, chatting with friends, whether we're in the same game or different games. I mean, we even do that with Discord too. Like, we won't even be on the same platform now. How portable we can get. But yeah, Xbox Live, of course, Game Pass, 7, and yeah, the reason I keep coming back though each and every year is obviously the games. Halo has always been close to heart. I'm very excited for Infinite coming out later this year. Happy that I don't have to drop any money because it's coming through with Pass. Gears of War, that's always been one of my all-time favorite franchises. I actually like that more than Halo. Um, Sea of Thieves, that's another good exclusive. Forza is way up there as well. So in terms of exclusive games, they've always kind of catered to my interests. Um, I did have PlayStation. I was checking out Ratchet and Clank last year. I never actually got to God of War. That is one that I think I would enjoy a ton. So in terms of what they're doing right, I think they've had great success with the games. I think they've needed a little bit of a push. I think like not only Xbox, PlayStation, as well as Nintendo. I think everybody's kind of been an interesting last year or so with the pandemic and titles maybe getting back a little bit more than we'd like them to. But yeah, looking for more of those exclusive titles that are coming to Xbox, definitely under the Bethesda acquisition. All of those titles, I think there were 15 insane over a dozen publishers were acquired by Microsoft in the past year. So it's coming. It's just we've all been waiting for quite some time now.
And that kind of segues into another pain point with Microsoft. And while I want to heap some more praise on them, the availability of games with thanks to Game Pass, and Microsoft has also done really well with pushing up indies. Xbox Live Arcade, which started back on 360, was such a huge movement in gaming by giving so much marketing power behind newer, smaller titles and really pushing that digital space open in the digital marketing places. It's a little sad that they got rid of um, that arcade distinction or branding, and it's been an ongoing conversation about by labeling these games, these smaller indie games, as arcade games. Are we devaluing them? Are we not putting them in like a separate place, not next to all the big AAA games? And I think by nature they are different. And I'm on the side that I think that the arcade branding makes sense. That offers it communicates what these kind of experiences are, and it doesn't necessarily devalue them. The value comes from your personal perspective of how big an experience are you looking for. And while there can be indie games that are big, obviously like Minecraft is a huge indie game that can be take forever and infinite play, but you can also only play it for like, 15 minutes and you understand what this game's about. So I feel like I would love the arcade branding to come back and have that marketing, but that is something that Microsoft is making headway on. But it's been a problem they've had. As Mark has gone through pretty much the big list of games. And I'm sorry, did I miss it? Did you mention how much you like Forza?
He totally did not.
No, no, Forza, I used to love it. I mean, it was easily top 2, top 3 games of anything that I played. But no, it's taken a huge downward spiral in my opinion. Ever since Forza 6, it kind of opened the floodgate. Got a lot of new people playing the game, all about the microtransactions, the random sort of loot packs, to unlock different, stupid features. In my opinion, I was always about 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think those were 4. I thought was one of the best ones yet. Um, 7 just came on to Game Pass. I want to say in the last year. I've honestly not even booted it up. I don't know. I'm just not as excited about it anymore.
And aren't you more of a Forza Horizon fan than the core Forza series?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So that was kind of my take on motorsport. I was always way more into the motorsport, but then when they started getting into look at the tires, they're all squishy now when you go on turns and whatnot, and they were caring less about the actual gameplay and more about just showing it off as a graphical demo for all the new consoles. Forza Horizon, I think those are honestly the better Forza games nowadays. And I know that kind of kills me inside saying that because years ago it was like there was quite a bit of a divide. But I'm so excited about Forza Horizon 5 coming out. I've already got it preloaded actually on my Xbox One. Coming out, I think, in another 2 or 3 months, 2021. Oh, what year are we in?
Yeah, that flat circle of time that we keep talking about thanks to COVID, it's getting wild. But my getting back to the point was, yeah. So let's take down the IP here because Microsoft just hasn't had a lot of first party IP and hasn't really established much. Like Nintendo is clearly the benchmark for you have a stable of first party titles that anyone who's a gamer pretty much knows. We've got Halo and we've got Gears of War. And while one's a first person shooter and a third person shooter, at a glance, they're largely the same type of game. And I'm not trying to disrespect them because they clearly, I've played both. I know that they're different. There's very different styles to the shooters, but to someone who's just casually glancing at it or doesn't really care about shooters, like they're shooters. And we've seen tons of shooters. So it's like two core franchises with just slightly different aesthetics. They're both like sci-fi to some extent. Halo's the more colorful of the two. And okay, maybe I'm being. Mark was shaking his head a little bit, so maybe I am underselling them a bit. But that's my feeling is that it just feels when the genres are that similar, it feels pretty much the same. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I gotta jump in and correct you. No, I would say they're like totally opposite sides of the spectrums. They are both shooters, one being a third person, one being a first person. The first person Halo being much more open to the masses. That's kind of their target demo. Fast paced, different abilities, this, that, and the other thing. Gears, you're hunkered down. It's strategy. It's a chess match. Like it's all about cover and slowly moving. And it's not a run and gun Call of Duty, Halo. Like that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, because Forza and Mario Kart are like the same thing, right?
Forza Horizon and Mario Kart.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. So yeah, no, I get what you're saying because like I guess from my very nerdy perspective, I would say like Halo is one side of the spectrum and Borderlands is the other side of that spectrum. Not so much Gears of War, and Gears of War is somewhere in the middle of that. But yeah, I get it. Like I'm not a fan of that, so I'll take the L on that one. As big a fan of those two series, and I have issues with both. With Halo's style. I like Halo's aesthetic more than I like its gameplay, and I like Gears of War's gameplay more than I like its aesthetic. So it's like if they could mix that together, I would appreciate that a lot. Uh, I'm sorry, did something just happen? What was going on there?
Yeah, you're killing me. Gear, like it's just got that grit that no other game really has. It's got the cities that have been destroyed, but then vibrant colors in other areas. It has, in my opinion, one of the most diverse color palettes. You've got, yes, a lot of muddy, very flat colors, but then when you pop that in with those blues and reds and yellows, it just breathes new life.
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying, and then I can chalk that up to that's just the way Gears of War has come across in both its mass marketing and from what I've seen in exposure from what information I've gotten from the Gears. And yes, I haven't looked too closely, but even when we played a few multiplayer matches, although I do remember when we played Gears 5 and I did that tutorial, it was much brighter. And the series has moved away from the grunge, which was also it was kind of a casualty of its time because Unreal Engine 3 and a lot of people were just Unreal Engine was just starting to come up and become much more of a staple, and it came out now that a lot of people were just trying to use the base assets and then refine from there to cut time and to save time and reach higher levels of fidelity and stuff like that. And also the brown and grittiness is also a way of kind of communicating, oh, this is meant to be a little more realistic because muted color palettes because things aren't naturally as saturated in real life, yada yada yada. But yeah, so that my opinion of that is definitely tainted by just the marketing perception that they tried to put out for Gears of War, and that has changed over time. So that's fair, but that's just my impression of the two series, in comparison. And I gotta say, like it's not the popular opinion, and that's because I'm on the fringe when it comes to these groups. But like Halo 4's redesign of Master Chief, I thought was like the best. And I know that it's very mixed on Halo 4, and when 343 Studios took it over, and it wasn't Bungie. Although Halo Reach, which was the last 343 game, was pretty good. Sorry, did I misspeak?
Yeah, I think it sounded like you were saying Halo 5 was the first one by 343, but I do not believe that was the case. 4 was.
Yes, thank you for catching me. If I didn't speak that properly, Halo 4 was the first one by 343.
This is why we have Mark here. This is
Yep.
why we have Mark here to help us when we get the facts wrong.
Yep. And Halo Reach was the last one by Bungie, who then went on to do Destiny. And I thought Halo Reach's final revisions of the Spartan armor actually looked really good. And it's just it was kind of a slightly different take, a little more sleek style armor for Halo 4. So they weren't too far off, but it was it was taking it in a slightly different direction. But that's just how I feel about those. And then you've got Fable, which is like their RPG series. It's like their only thing. And then they've got Forza and Forza Horizon, which are two racing games. One is a more simulator, one is a more arcadey version of that simulator. Like there's not even a different visual style. They're both trying to use the same like car models and stuff. It's not like they go from like highly detailed to like cell shading or something like that. Would you?
Sorry. Yeah, real quick.
All good.
Horizon actually took the physics engine from Motorsport, so the two were absolutely built off of one another. I think I gotta double check, but I'm pretty sure the same studio, or I know there's a lot of crossover. It may not be the same studio. That doesn't sound right because I know that the games are being developed slightly different timings, but yeah, there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah, and maybe I'm being a little too surface level when I say like the visual styles and stuff, but just to kind of drive home the point with that. And Mark, could you honestly say as a fan, if someone showed you an unmarked screenshot of a Forza Motorsports game and compared it next to a Forza Horizon game, do you think that you could tell the difference of which version of Forza that came from?
Probably not, but I would absolutely love if we do that test. That actually sounds incredible.
Oh yeah, we'll have to try that at some point. Okay, so yeah, it's also kind of stuff at a glance there, and of course, Lionhead Studios was creating Fable, and that got dissolved, which is unfortunate. Microsoft acquired Rare. They created one new Banjo-Kazooie game under them, Nuts and Bolts, and it didn't go well. Rare is currently working on Sea of Thieves, which is a good... Okay, I say good new IP because I believe in the potential of it. It's not quite where I want. I wish there was more single-player content to go on to, but that's just me. But since it's on Game Pass, like, I can't help but say that Sea of Thieves is the de facto Game Pass game. There's no reason to buy Sea of Thieves because that is a super service game, and you should buy Game Pass and play Sea of Thieves on that with your friends. And then I'm trying to think what other like IP they own, not counting Bethesda. Like, what else did Microsoft? And yes, they have the Rare IP, but even before that, so they own Killer Instinct now. They have Banjo-Kazooie, which they're not really leveraging. Killer Instinct. Phil Spencer was recently quoted as saying that they want to continue Killer Instinct, but they don't have a studio that could do it, which speaks to a couple different issues. I don't think it's necessarily a lack of interest, but they are probably looking for someone who's already talented rather than try to build up a studio that would take it over and do something new with Killer Instinct. Yeah,
Bethesda.
I'm talking about
Bethesda.
I'm talking about pre-Bethesda, before that, because like just before that, because clearly Bethesda was bought, and plus all the other studios were bought to solve a problem that Microsoft couldn't really solve with their current talent or bring in the same way. So that's what I'm trying to... Mark, is there any other first-party titles I'm really forgetting? Microsoft Flight Simulator I'll throw in there, but that's been a Windows series more than an Xbox. What are you seeing?
No, I think we've definitely covered the big ones. I know there's a couple that we're missing, but yeah, that's kind of the overall.
Yeah, and we can juxtapose that with Nintendo. Like, Ed, you and I know we can name probably every Nintendo franchise off the top of our heads, minus like one or two that we're like, oh, that is owned by Nintendo, isn't it? Like Balloon Fight, I think, is like the last game.
It would be like listing states. You know, you think you'd have all of them, but there's always one that you can't remember. You always forget.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
We would get pretty close.
Yeah. So that's the thing with Microsoft. So there's that. Then when they bought Rare, yes, they've got Banjo and Kazooie. They've got Conker. They now have Sea of Thieves. They also have
Perfect Dark.
There was one more I just missed. Shoot. But those are like the big ones. And then they just acquired Bethesda. Oh, they bought
Viva Pinata. They could still make another Viva Pinata.
Viva Pinata, a game that they still haven't. And considering how crazy Animal Crossing New Horizons took off for Switch. Now that is probably a lightning in a bottle, time and place, like the perfect situation. But that's another perfect Game Pass game for like people who love like simulator type stuff. Mark, did you have some extra thoughts? You look like you were.
Yeah. Ori was the only other one. That's a big name.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love Ori.
Yeah. A lot of people do. That's the big one too. I know they've had really good success. They just had their sequel not too long ago.
Was Cuphead their game?
No, they published it, but another studio owns it, so they were just partnering with it. It was like a second-party style deal. But Cuphead has come to like everything. Ori has come to Switch, and it's on PC. But that's more of Microsoft trying to brand it. They acquired Minecraft, so that's a huge deal. And shout-outs to that, getting into Super Smash Brothers, and of course Banjo-Kazooie finally coming home to Super Smash Brothers. Yeah, Ori was a good. Thanks for that, Mark. That was a good reminder. Then, yeah, Bethesda. Oh, yeah, I want to shout out to Double Fine. I think Double Fine's going to bring a lot of unique IP. We're getting Psychonauts 2, and we'll see what else they develop in the future now that they've got Microsoft's first-party backing. Ninja Theory, who created Hellblade. So right now, Hellblade 2 is being created. And who knows? Like, they're a talented action game studio, so I could see them doing a bunch. They did the Devil May Cry soft reboot that was not a fan favorite, so we'll see what else they can come up with past that. But even Senua's Sacrifice, like that's another like kind of dark, gritty game that Microsoft doesn't really need more of. And now they have Bethesda, so they acquired like 5 more dark, gritty games. They acquired they now have Mark, what's the studio that is like from the Fallout New Vegas team that did Outer Worlds, the Fallout like
Obsidian.
Obsidian. Thank you so much, Ed. So Obsidian they've acquired. So Outer Worlds is pretty good. I haven't played it myself yet, but I'm looking forward to playing that game. They've got Outer Worlds 2 announced, and Obsidian is also creating their from the teaser trailer we got. I don't care how unfair it sounds. It's a Skyrim like whatever it is, a Skyrim like RPG. And now they literally own Skyrim too, which I don't know how Obsidian feels about that, but I think it'll be funny if now that Microsoft owns Bethesda and Obsidian, they go, hey, and they go, Obsidian goes, we'd like to make a new Fallout, please. And Bethesda has to let them. That'd be great. But I think, Obsidian having their own autonomy within the Microsoft sphere to be able to make their own IPs. But I wonder what they're going to do now. They have to really shake it up for whatever, I forget what the title of that game was because they didn't show off any gameplay. So why should anyone care?
Was it Contraband? Was that the one you're thinking of?
I don't think that's their medieval RPG game.
Oh no, but that was another one that they didn't show off any gameplay. So maybe but that's not the right one. You're right. That's not it.
And Bethesda's got some interesting games. Obviously, with Bethesda also comes id Studios. So we've got Doom, we've got Dishonored, we've got Deathloop coming, we've got Ghostwire Tokyo coming. Elder Scrolls series is now owned by them. Elder Scrolls Online is going strong. Avowed, thank you, Mark, was showing off Avowed there. Oh yeah, Rare was also Killer Instinct. I just wanted to reshout that out. That's what I was trying to get at before. And then
Arcane was the one who didn't they do Dishonored and they're doing Deathloop? Isn't that Arcane?
Yes, Arcane is owned by Bethesda, so they were part of the package. And what other big series is coming because thanks to Bethesda and
Starfield? What is it called?
Starfield. Yes, that is the new. That is going to be
not Starbound. That's Scalebound plus Starfield. No, Starfield. Yeah.
Elder Scrolls in space. They're also gonna. Oh yeah, Prey, the new version of Prey, which was really good. It's like a much more survival horror-y BioShock, which I enjoyed a heck ton. And then I was trying to think. I'm probably missing like one other super big Bethesda game just because I don't play it. I mean, there was that one weird Mad Max style one that's not Mad Max. That was first person. But go ahead, Mark.
Did you say Doom yet?
That was the first one I said.
Okay, good.
Yeah, was the Mad Max one you're thinking of? Was that Rage?
Yes. Thank you, Ed. Rage 1 and Rage 2. So they have that, which, boy. Although Rage 2 looked really fun. But I would play that on Game Pass. I wouldn't buy that, and I would probably play it for like an hour. Although I didn't give it a fair shake. Rage 2 looked a lot more fun than Rage 1, and Rage 1 was more of a tech demo by id, so that's a little unfair. But Rage 2 might be worth a shot. But yeah,
I think it was supposed to be short, which probably makes it a good Game Pass game.
Depends on what you're looking for, because some people might subscribe for 1 or 2 games they want to play forever. Like Sea of Thieves games as service, or maybe they want to try a bunch of little games, and then that's good for everyone in between. So once again, there's not a bad sell really for Xbox Game Pass. But on that point, because you and I, Ed, have had a bunch of conversations about Game Pass, and I'm trying to convince you to get in on it. And obviously, you don't have the hardware to run it yet.
Well, I'd have to have a PC or an Xbox to get in on it. But
right. But you were also hesitant in general because your feelings on subscriptions. And Mark really hasn't been privy to much of these conversations. So why don't you reiterate for the audience and for Mark here, I'll pass the mic over to Mark, is like, where are you at with, is Game Pass compelling enough? And what would you get first? Would you get a PC or would you get an Xbox?
There's reasons for me to get both. There are some games that I would like to play that probably the easiest way to play them, and in some cases the only way to play them is through the backwards compatibility of Xbox. And then there's some games that are only on PC that I would like to play. But current gen Xbox games are going to be on PC as well. I don't know. I guess right now I kind of feel like I have games to play, so I'm not in any hurry. It really is going to depend on what I want to play. I just couldn't give you an answer on that, not knowing what's going to be out on Game Pass.
So you just don't, yeah, you're not yet compelled enough by the library selection to branch out past the systems that you own. So that's kind of the core of it.
Yeah, I would say so. And I personally have a lot of games to play on the systems that I own that I certainly could occupy my time well enough without buying an Xbox or a PC.
Hypothetical, if Game Pass was available on your PlayStation 4 and on the PlayStation platform or even Switch, just to say, would you get Game Pass? Like, is it compelling as it is right now, and that's the main thing, or do you really need those extra game pushes before you'd actually cross that barrier?
I have looked through the library several times in the past few months. Like, I like to check and see what's on it. And as it is now, I probably would not get Game Pass.
All right, and I asked Mark to pass the mic back because I actually wanted to just pull up some more games. I want to make sure that for our Xbox fans, because we do talk about a lot of Nintendo and PlayStation, I'm honoring as many. Uh, Crackdown, which has floundered, but I still think there's hope there. And Blinks the Time Sweeper. There's a section of the internet that would want to crucify me if I didn't mention Blinks the Time Sweeper. And then if I didn't say it before, Conquer is also owned by Rare. And so that's something else we could have there. So I'm probably going to keep mentioning, Shadowrun. I guess Shadowrun is Microsoft exclusive as well. So that'd be good. And yeah, I'm just going to keep going on the list here. But yeah, Mark, go ahead.
I'm just kind of piggybacking off of what you had mentioned, Ed. I think talking PC, console, just Game Pass in general, like at the end of the day, I think that's kind of where Xbox needs to, as a brand, improve the most. Just getting more games. Like right now, you can buy or Game Pass Ultimate, $15 a month, and you also get the EA games as well, EA access. However, on PC, you can't play FIFA, Madden, NHL, all the sports titles. Just they're locked down to console exclusivity. Kind of sucks, but that's if you just had simply a PC and a PlayStation, and Game Pass Ultimate, covering off EA as well as pretty much opening the floodgate on Xbox storefront on PC. Essentially, you'd be able to cover all the bases, except there's just gaps. Not everything is a one-to-one. Not everything is cross-play. They have done a great job when it comes to first-party stuff being cross-play. Um, but it just doesn't cover everything, unfortunately, right now.
I mean, my ideal world is one where everything's on PC. I only have to buy one thing. I mean, that would be great. I mean, I'm not a big PC gamer now, but a lot of that's the reason. A lot of the reason for that is that many of the games I like are exclusive to Nintendo or Sony consoles. So, absent that exclusivity, I would probably just play on PC. I just makes so much sense. And with PC, you don't have to worry about if Nintendo is gonna give you access to their back library. It's just there. I mean,
Yeah.
and you talked about Xbox working on their PC strategy. It just occurred to me there's really no reason that all the you know the games that are backwards compatible on Xbox the 360 games, the Xbox One games, the original Xbox games you can play on your current gen. There's no reason they couldn't get those to work on PC. I mean, there's a lot of games that it could all come to PC. They just
I think
that
in
would be
theory, but yeah, like all the like think of all the Rock Band, Guitar Hero type games, like they were only
yeah.
licensed to be played on such and such console for such and such period of time. So I'm right there with you. Like and what I said earlier too, like Xbox is running a version of Windows. So the whole kernel, like all of this background stuff is working the exact same way. It's just you know when companies are doing all these remakes and okay 4K high res upgrade, like but you have to pay for that. That's I think the route that a lot of these companies unfortunately are going for, and putting gamers kind of in the backseat there.
Yeah, we did our Game Genie episode a while back. You get your three wishes, but I guess I really only need one wish. Everything's on PC. Then you can use whatever controller you want. You can use whatever you want. Like, just that's the only wish that anybody needs.
Yeah, and actually, you brought up the Rock Band stuff, and Guitar Hero, and I just realized like that's probably actually some type of good episode. Mark saying it's like a time and place style of game, and we all know that the music stuff is basically it's a licensing nightmare, and so we've talked about before how licensing games is or games that deal with outside licenses are some of the worst to be archived and or the hardest to get archived and preserved because all those people with those rights want their money and they need to redraw their contracts to make sure they're making money perpetually, and it just some of that stuff gets lost to time. Another thing I need to call out is Microsoft does own Undead Labs now, the developers of State of Decay 1 and 2. So once again, that's actually a pretty solid game. State of Decay 1 was super buggy, but the concept was pretty good, and it was riding like the DayZ vibes, but it was a much, by comparison, much more refined, and I thought more fun DayZ. And then on State of Decay 2, Mark and I and a couple people played, and we were having a pretty good time, but we haven't revisited it, and that's more too, I think. Did we play that during COVID lockdown, or did we play that? Yeah, we organized during.
Yeah, we played it during COVID lockdown. 4-player. The only keyword that you were missing from the description there is janky. You always got to say janky when it comes to State of Decay 2.
Yeah, there is jank, but it wasn't like intolerable jank. Like we were having fun with it. So that we thought about reserve. It's a very good like bro down game. Like jump in, hang out with your buds, and just kind of do stuff, beat up zombies. Like the mechanics lent themselves to some pretty solid fun there. So that was definitely worth revisiting, and I think that's another perfect Game Pass game. So I want to transition into a little something here, and of course, feel free, Mark, to take this in a different direction. But I want to heap on some praise on Microsoft right now because we've been mixing and analyzing a bunch of stuff, but there's a lot of stuff I do want to praise. We've already talked Game Pass to death. I want to talk about Xbox Design Labs with their controllers. I'm going to talk about their controllers a lot right now. Xbox has done really good developing their controllers. We all know the Duke from OG was rough, then their Slim was better, and it was kind of a evolved version of Game Pass, but it is the predecessor of the dual twin stick controllers that we now love today. And while technically Sony did have twin stick first, the offset stick layout is the most preferred among controller gamers at this point. Even Nintendo, who tried experimenting with, or GameCube was offset, and then they went to the Wii was a weird one, but that one had PlayStation style symmetrical sticks. Then they went to Wii U, where they did symmetrical above, which apparently everyone hated. I didn't really understand. Like, people just don't want to fight their muscle memory, which I kind of get, but at the same time, people are a little bit big babies. And now Nintendo has joined the crew of Xbox in terms of their Switch Pro controllers, and their Joy-Cons have offset sticks. So shout outs to the 360 controller, the refinements they made with the Xbox One controllers, which were further refined in a second generation of them. Shout outs to them for their design studios, actually letting people like custom order colors and different things for that, and actually providing a first party way of customizing controllers for safety safety of purchase for consumers. Shout out to the Elite series controllers, popularizing back bumpers and extra customizability. So I'm looking forward to the Series 3 because while Series 1's cool, it's D-pad. I like with the standard series controllers, the raised cross sections, and that really makes a huge difference for me as a fighting game fan, but it's the right amount of clicky, as I've probably gone off before in our previous episodes. And I'm looking forward to hopefully the Elite Series 3 having that in there, and then I can buy that with no reserve so I can have some back bumpers. Shout outs for the accessibility controller that Xbox has done, a first party, super big supported thing for gamers with disabilities. Like, no one else is doing that. And I don't even think like PlayStation or Nintendo have really done anything in terms of providing accessibility, even firmware support. And of course, PC, you can do anything, but Microsoft did this, and that's such a crazy thing, and no one else is replicating, and they deserve huge praise for doing all that. Pioneering the online game service. We can also demonize them for then popularizing a subscription that locks multiplayer behind stuff, and it's become less justified. But they're they're making up for it with backwards compatibility, better services. They pioneered, Mark, like the online party system and online invites and online lobbies and stuff and friend groups and things like that. So huge ups to all that. Mark, is there anything else you want to shout out while we're praising Xbox?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of the party thing, since since Xbox One, the compatibility of all right, so to piggyback off of what you were saying, Ryan, the party chat, since Xbox One, if not even earlier than that, has been seamless from console to PC to phone. I think that's been something pretty incredible. You can be on any three of those devices, be chatting with your friends again, like you don't have to be on yada yada yada. Ed, was there something you wanted to chime about as well?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think the general design of their consoles has gotten better over the years. You know, obviously you had the huge fiasco that was with the Red Ring of Death with the 360, and that cost them billions to fix. And then, the Xbox One when it came out was pretty big and not so great. But that One X, their console revision, that was a really powerful and nicely done system. I love the Series X. I love the way it looks, and even the Series S is. It's cool that they pack so much functionality into such a small piece of hardware. I think what they've got going as far as hardware design and their general OS, I think is good. I think the smart, what is it called, the quick resume is good. I think the features they have with like the smart delivery have been like, I feel like their experience, hardware and software, is better than what's offered from Nintendo or Sony.
Yeah, the smart delivery seemed like a really silly buzzword for a really awesome concept. And once again, Xbox is just not good with branding a lot of things, minus like Xbox Arcade. But yeah, and Series. I'll give a shout out to Series. It's something they should have figured out sooner. But yeah, no, smart delivery is great, and that's really getting highlighted the more we see PlayStation with PlayStation 5 kind of fumble the ball with their upgrades. Mark, go ahead. Keep going. Yeah. Oh,
I
sorry.
was gonna say, I don't know if you guys have watched unboxing videos of either of the consoles, but even the packaging
Yeah,
of
I
the
did see that.
Xbox Series X is way better than that of the PlayStation 5. Like it looks so much nicer than even the box, the way it like opens like a shoe box, and the padding they have.
I would have said like a
It's
treasure chest.
Yeah, yeah, that's even better. Better analogy. But it's so much better than what they're doing with the PlayStation 5. Like it's the only thing the PlayStation 5 has going for it, in my opinion, is the DualSense and the exclusives.
Yeah, if only Microsoft hadn't like you had let Don Matrick near the Xbox. We can only imagine how much better that Xbox One would have had as a generation and what that would have led to in terms of the competition for PlayStation and Nintendo. Although Nintendo is kind of out on its own island. But yeah, Microsoft has made a lot of great consumer facing moves, and while there are still a few iffy things like we said about the online, it's just it's mind-boggling that we don't see the other platforms really kind of competing. It Sony might be starting to feel the pressure, but thanks to like the chip shortage and stuff like that, and PS5's just selling out like hotcakes, they're not ready to do that. And they've got their game. They've got their IP game kind of on lock, and that's something I wanted to touch on both with PlayStation and it was there with the Xbox before. And I meant to bring this up specifically on PlayStation before, which is like, got to leverage your IP better for family friendly games. We have a bunch of stuff that is really cool for us, a certain demographic, but none of them, Sony, to some extent. So to finish my thought before the audience goes wild on me for forgetting things, I look at Nintendo and I see that Nintendo's kind of gone the other way. They have a bunch of family-friendly, high-quality games, and they've been branching out more into some more mature theme stuff. Like they were helping, or they were co-publishing maybe the No More Heroes series. Bayonetta, they've been partnering with Sega for. They produced Astral Chain with Platinum, and that's partially thanks to the Bayonetta series. Metroid has slowly been evolving more into like their more mature themed one with like especially with the Prime series, and we're seeing Dread look really good. Ed, can you think of other Nintendo properties that are kind of going the more mature route?
I mean,
Like it's
I
teen, but
guess
like
I guess I guess Fire Emblem. I mean,
yeah, a bit.
it's kind of like anime-ish, but it's probably appeals to a older crowd, but
Yeah,
they don't really have much as far as, I guess, what do you, like you said, they got Bayonetta. I can't think of anything else that is um
yeah, it's about that. Like
yeah,
Bayonetta Astral Chain and No More Heroes isn't technically first party. It's kind of second party, but even that's branching away at this point. Although No More Heroes 3 will be exclusive and probably will eventually go to PC since No More Heroes 1 and 2 and Travis's Desperate Struggle, I believe it's called, is now going there. Um, but yeah, so they're kind of going the other direction. But like Sony has amazing first parties, like we talked about before with God of War and I mean Infamous. They used to push Resistance. They used to push Killzone. They've got
Horizon,
Horizon
Ghost
Zero
of
Dawn is
Tsushima.
amazing. Ghost of Tsushima. And so they've got and The Last of Us, Uncharted. They've locked down that like mega blockbuster 18 to like 50-year-old male demographic. But they haven't really tried as hard as they could have to kind of branch out. And maybe some of that's just not the money, but I just don't think you got to put in a lot of effort to try and like Little Big Planet with Media Molecule and they did Sackboy's Big Adventure, which was the PS5 and PS4 title, which is which is a better direction, but it still feels kind of. I haven't played it yet myself, but just from the marketing, it still feels like a small, like trying to be something that it's not
I
quite there yet.
played it.
Did you
I
like it?
played it. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I loved the original Little Big Planet. I played the hell out of those, and those were a lot of fun. And Sackboy, it's kind of like Mario 3. It's kind of like their Mario 3D world in a way. It's similar, kind of isometric third person. Well, not really. Yeah, kind of isometric camera.
Yeah.
It's good. It's not great, but it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think, and we see they have like they did Astrobot, the pack-in game. It was PlayStation VR bound, and now they did a 3D platformer pack-in on PS5, and that was really impressive. And to me, who's not really a fan of platformers, it's extra notable for me. So, and then Ratchet and Clank's making a comeback, but like they're not, as far as we know right now, they're not bringing back Sly Cooper. They're not going to try a new Jack game, and they're not seemingly interested in trying to do like a AAA level Mario style experience or even some other genres. They did try when I was preparing for this, I realized there was that racing game they were doing that was people called it like Little Big Planet Kart, but not the Little Big Planet racing game, that the kart racer that came out, the other one that was like you could build all your own
Mod Nation Racers.
Yes, exactly. So, shifting back to Xbox for the Xbox podcast episode. Xbox has IP they could be utilizing. They have those rare IP, and while
they have the ultimate family game, Minecraft. Like that's the family game to rule all family games in terms of popularity.
right, but you can't do one. You can't just have one because people get bored. People get bored, people move on, and people will come back every once in a while to Minecraft. And Minecraft's so big. I'm not saying it's not big, but people will move away. And even though, like, you see it with Call of Duty, and Call of Duty kind of cheats because it comes out with a new version of itself every year. So it's like, it's a weird refresh. Halo Infinite's going to that free to play multiplayer. So it itself's going to kind of do that. You know, you got Fortnite and stuff like that. But for Microsoft first party, they could leverage Banjo, they could leverage Conquer, they could leverage some Ori
Conquer?
even.
Is
Well,
Conquer a kid's game? Well, I guess it could be.
Conquer's better. Yeah, it was originally, but I guess you don't have to. But it's a different flavor that they could be going for. But family friendly, they should add some family friendly IP into their mix. I think Double Fine could do that, but a lot of that stuff's like tongue in cheek comedy. So that's my point is though that I'm grasping at straws when it comes to what could I recommend to someone who is like 7 years older or younger, or a parent, because we're getting older now. We've got friends who are having kids, and they're young. Like, who could you recommend to family and be like, yo, like, oh, you don't have Nintendo, you have Xbox, and you want to play Mario Kart? Well, and you want to play Mario Kart game on Xbox? Well, I don't really have anything I can suggest where it's like, oh, these are fun party things. Yes, there are some indie offerings, but I'm saying Microsoft is not putting exclusives on it to justify its own platform, and that's more of what I'm getting at here. If we completely say that none of that should matter and Xbox should eventually just be Game Pass and that is literally what Xbox is, then sure, it doesn't matter anymore and they should just sign some exclusive deals. But even then, they should get those exclusive deals and both PlayStation and Xbox should not be monopolizing it, or should not be letting Nintendo monopolize that family space and just leave it up to indie. And while indies certainly do great things, indies don't have enough marketing dollars for that.
So, a potential technical problem with regards to families and Game Pass. I think Game Pass, you have to buy it, you have to subscribe to it for each Xbox account, don't you? Like, there's no family plan for Game Pass. Like, if you want Spotify for your family, it's like $15 a month or whatever versus $10 for one person. But there's no family plan for Game Pass. That's a barrier towards it being a family console.
S-
Unless I misunderstand the business model.
Yeah, so unless I'm completely wrong, if one individual has Xbox Live, let's just say Gold, that's what it used to be known as. I can't remember what it's called now, but if one person had it on the entire console, if there were 6 people in the household, everyone had full access to every game
Oh.
and online access. So yes, or to directly go at your question, no, um, you are wrong, Ed, and you can get Xbox.
Well,
Or
good. I'm glad I'm wrong about
yeah.
that one.
Also wanted to jump in to correct Mr. Ryan. I think Minecraft is way more popular than you're aware of. I just pulled up a number from hostingtribunal.com. Apparently, 126 million monthly Minecraft users. That's just one of the numbers that I found. But I think years ago when they bought Minecraft, I want to say it was like $2 billion. It was an insane figure. I thought it was entirely for long term, um, you know, get get kids interested in Xbox and get them aware of Microsoft early on, get them older, get them into ecosystem later on in life. Are you seeing something a bit different?
I mean, I don't think kids
So
get tired of Minecraft that easy. Like kids watch the same
I
movies over and over again. Like they like the same stuff.
oh yeah, and I'll take that on the chin if that's a matter of my personal taste and want to move on if not enough people. But um, I do think it helps considering with Nintendo franchises that they could definitely be doing more. But I could be fully underestimating it. And this wasn't really to undercut the Minecraft thing by much. I was just kind of being cheeky. I looked up Roblox because Roblox is something that I've been learning is another thing that I've underestimated. And this article from backlinko.com blog is saying Roblox has 37.1 million daily active users worldwide. And I believe it does start out free to play. I don't think Minecraft has a free to play version on Windows. Do you know that offhand, Mark? Or I think you still got to pay, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a paid game.
So yeah, that's a little unfair of a comparison there, free to play versus something else, because that's like comparing not Minecraft, sorry, Fortnite multiplayer to Halo 5 multiplayer. Like you gotta invest to play that game, and with Fortnite, you can play it on literally everything. So I would like to see them still branch out and do more family friendly IP. And also, Ed, it really doesn't matter if it's per system. Local multiplayer, like we've talked about it, like you can do both. You can have games that do both. And we're already complaining a bunch about Mario Golf Super Rush and how it's like there's no reason locally or even online this game couldn't support 8 people playing the standard golf mode. Why is it limited to 4? I get for like Golf Rush or for speed golf or for battle golf why they got to limit that, but for standard golf only 4? Come on, guys. So Microsoft could be creating its own brand of family friendly stuff, and they kind of did. Because what I was also doing when I wanted to talk about my string of compliments and controller stuff is I did want to touch on another flop of a controller, which was the Kinect mentioned earlier. So Microsoft did experiment with motion controls, and I applaud them for trying to compete
They
with the Wii's
they
motion
went
controls
all in. They went all in with the Xbox One. It was included with every console.
for a while, and
Yeah.
then, or wait, Mark, you're thinking of something.
Yeah, I'm scratching my head. Was that early on at launch? Like it was a requirement that you had to get the two?
It was bundled with every console. That's why
Okay.
the base Xbox One is kind of underpowered compared to the PS4, is because they spent a lot of money and it when it was a $500 package versus the
Yeah.
PlayStation's $400 package. So they went all in on Connect. Like they were fully behind it.
Yeah. I think that's probably why I waited to buy the Xbox One when I did. I know I waited a year or two. Um, I just wasn't playing a whole lot of video games just before that. But yeah, I think it may still technically be possible to play on Series, but you've got to probably use a whole bunch of dongles and accessories if it even worked. But it's the only console that had an accessory that you could perform open heart surgery with. Like there were some crazy, real world scenarios of Kinect doing some amazing things. Obviously, rest in peace. It's no longer really a thing. But I don't know. I'm not into the extra stuff like that. I'm more about the traditional game itself.
So how do you feel about the DualSense controller with their adaptive triggers and the haptic feedback? Does that do anything for you?
I don't think I've experienced it yet firsthand. It's definitely something that I got to give a try. I can't say anything about it yet. I know I've heard a lot of people say that it's crazy and is it game changing? I don't know, but yeah, I got maybe after we are done recording, I'll actually give it a go.
Yeah, and Mark can try on my PlayStation 5 at some point a couple of games that use the adaptive triggers, and he can see how that feels. Um, I think, yeah, like I have Spider-Man Miles Morales, which would be the most obvious one to try right now. You can also try Astrobot. He's a big fan of MLB, so that would be something I could rent at some point for him to try. And do the adaptive triggers. And Mark, you are aware of the survey that went out not too long ago from Xbox that they're looking for what features from like the DualSense or other controllers that their Xbox fan base likes to that could possibly be influencing either the next series or a future generation of the series controller.
I don't know if that's something that we talked about or if that was something that I heard firsthand, but no, I didn't really catch what the bottom line was, just how things are shifting.
So not that I want to taint your opinion, but for the most part, in my perspective, when I heard that, I don't really like anything that the series controller added in terms of those additional features, other than kind of the microphone being added. And the only issue I have with the microphone is that it defaults to on, but I'm glad it's there. So I've set that to auto off. I don't think the touchpad being in the center is all that useful. It's kind of a interesting extra button, but now seeing the Steam Deck and the way it did with its double touchpads on the side, I think there's like a whole new way to look at controller design in terms of integrating a touchpad. And just for giving you some information about the adaptive triggers, well, it can be neat. It's like you got to feel for yourself and you'll make that decision. The adaptive triggers, from what I've heard, when they do break, it destroys all the resistance in those triggers. And sometimes they either do still read input or they don't. So I don't think it's worth adding the adaptive triggers to risk an extra part breaking from something that's fighting you. The only thing that might be the most interesting, and it's neat and it's just unobtrusive in my opinion, is the more detailed rumble, the haptic feedback rumble, because that can be pretty wildly accurate and has a very unique feel to it. But even I still turn off rumble for the most part, and it's a neat gimmick. But if Microsoft added it, I don't think it's it's not doing any harm. Unlike where it's another potential point of failure with the adaptive triggers. As I've said before, I would rather see back bumpers standardized, even just one set of back bumpers on primary controllers. But yeah, Mark,
I'm pretty sure there's a company that owns the patent to back bumpers, and I don't think Xbox or Sony wants to pay for that patent for every single controller they sell.
I have never heard of that. That's new.
I'm pretty sure there's a company that owns the patent to it, which is why they only included it as a an attachment for, because if they include it in every controller, they have royalties for every single controller for maybe a small percentage of people who would actually want that feature.
Oh, and even the premium control or a lot of premium controllers or even like third party stuff as well.
I think
Still
so.
has those back bumpers, but yeah, we can definitely look into more of that later. So that might be a technical thing. But Mark, how do you feel about Xbox's controller right now, and where would you want it to go?
Well, speaking again just to the Xbox One version, very happy with it. It was definitely a big improvement over the 360 version. I remember, or at least in my opinion, the bumpers were not as good as they could have been. They were just always very, I don't know, very tinny, very just like uh hollow. But there's definitely a lot more weight behind them, at least on the Xbox One. Very limited use that I've actually done on the series version. I enjoyed it. What would I like to see in the future? I've gone back and forth on whether or not to include that internal battery like PlayStation does. There's huge pros and cons on both sides. Um, I like the idea of including those back buttons as well. I don't feel like I'm missing anything else, any precision, any extra rumbles. It's tough to
Do
say.
you both turn off the rumble? Do you both turn off the rumble?
No, I
I've
definitely
I've never turned it off, but I
no, I never have either. I've always used I generally use extra rumble actually. My hands are just, my bones are shaking. I don't know. It's tough to say. Literally the only thing else that I could think of off the top of my head right now is a better sort of headphone audio output, um, or some type of Bluetooth transmitter to send to Bluetooth or headphones. That would be pretty cool. That's all I got.
Yeah, I think the Bluetooth do Bluetooth headphones in the Xbox consoles. Is that how that works now? It doesn't need to be the controller. Okay. Just saying, like that's not a big deal there. But so I will kind of disagree with Mark. It's not really, but on the battery, I am 100% pro the current style of user replaceable, and you can put in either a rechargeable pack or it's AA compatible. I think that's the way to go, especially since Sony's been so disappointing with the battery as we all went off on the PlayStation episode, and it's so confounding considering that Nintendo has probably like one generation behind the tech minus a touchpad on its controller, and its battery is so much better than the Dual Senses and the DualShock 4s. So shout outs to Microsoft for keeping that user experience intact with the user replaceable battery. I, I I think that's better consider rather than just being locked to, especially with controllers getting so much more expensive with all these extra features, is staying locked to, well, if your battery goes out, you either need a new controller or you void your warranty. Even then, who knows if you can get to your battery without breaking your controller. So that's where it's a semi disagreement, I guess, because like you said, there's pros and cons. And I think that it user swappable, even if it just means you're swapping a replaceable battery all the time, a rechargeable battery, and making that user replaceable for ease of use, and going away from the AA, or whatever those standard battery models are. I would I would be better with the user replaceable version. So that's where I land on that. Um, yeah, like I was saying with
I can agree with that. I'm with you on that, Ryan.
Cool Ed, thank you. And the like Microsoft did dabble with VR a bit, so like they've moved away from motion controllers. I don't know if we should ever bring back that. Oh, gyro motion. I'd be okay with adding gyro motion into the controllers. The rumble and the gyro motions. And when I say I turned off rumble, I usually if it's a single player game, I don't really care too much. But like fighting games, I definitely turn off the rumble because I don't need the rumble. Like I'm already bad enough with my inputs inconsistency, so I don't need that extra there. Or even sometimes in the shooting games, like I don't really need the rumble for when I'm trying to aim. But that might just me being extreme noob when it comes to those kind of things. Um, but yeah, the gyro motion I think should go in there because that only helps with aiming. Can be really helpful with aiming as an option, and I got that experience. So I want that, and I think the HD rumble whatever you want to call it, would be fine for additions there. So yeah, with the controllers, I don't think we'll ever see the motion control come back. I don't know if Microsoft is going to embrace VR again in the way it was before, where they had that slight partnership with Oculus. They're going to open it up more and support more VR games in the future, if they'll be partner with someone for another VR headset. And maybe we'll definitely revisit that a little bit more in a VR themed podcast episode. But yeah, I feel like I've covered all the bases for Xbox that I wanted to talk about today. Lot of positives, couple of negatives that are just kind of obvious, that are totally fixable and may even get fixed in the future. So I'm going to pass it back to Mark and see if he's got anything else he wants to talk about in today's episode.
I think that pretty much covers it all. So thank you again for having me, and pass it over to Ed if you had anything else to share.
No, I like what Xbox is doing. It's just kind of superfluous for me right now. I hope they give me a reason to want an Xbox or PC for Microsoft games.
Yeah, it'll be really curious to see where their service line takes them, how hardware plays into that. Will they fully step away from hardware? Will they change the game again with hardware? That's going to be really fascinating. As we said, their controllers are fantastic, so maybe that just becomes the hardware they do. They're pioneering some streaming. I haven't really tried the streaming, but I think streaming's inevitable. We're just not there yet, and it should just be bundled in with stuff until they can get it justified on its own, that it's where I could play a single player game and not feel like I'm getting gypped on it some way. But yeah, that's for the future. And yeah, Mark, thanks for being on here as well. You're part of the crew, so hope to have you on for some more episodes. And obviously, you're the first one we call when we've gone to do an Xbox specific topic or talk about Xbox games. So let us know if there's any game specific ones. We finished the main 3 platforms now. So what we're gonna talk about on the next episode, as long as everything goes well, is PC gaming. So there's that one. And after that, as long as we're staying on schedule, we'll probably talk about mobile gaming, which encompasses a lot of stuff there. And we'll have to discuss whether or not we're going to do the VR episode now or a little bit later. I've had the most VR experience. Mike has had the second most amount of VR experience, and Ed's had a little bit. So that might have to wait, but that might that might not be. But yeah, next up is PC, then coming up is mobile. I meant to say this at the beginning of the episode, and I probably should have plugged it, but I'll plug it now, and I'll insert something. Our podcast is now available not just on YouTube, but it is also available to download on multiple podcast apps, including Apple Podcast and Spotify. So if you'd like to follow along in an audio only form, and then not on YouTube, we're all audio only currently, you can download it and follow on other ones. Feel free to like, subscribe. We do have the dedicated Option Menu Crew channel now, so if you are on YouTube, we'd appreciate it if you liked and followed there. But yeah, otherwise, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And this is the Option Menu Crew signing off.
Bye.
See ya.